Cafe, which is a vegan cafe in Aberdeen city centre. I'm just going to talk to you guys about what drove us to open a vegan cafe and a little bit about how we operate and what continues to motivate us. So so we started out in 2015 as a weekend pop-up cafe, which we ran every Saturday for a year and a half. And now we're open as a full-time cafe on Skene Street, which we've been doing for the last 3 years. So we were the only vegan place in the city for a long time, and that's a big part of the reason why we decided to do what we do, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But just like a wee bit about what's happened in Aberdeen since. So we're still the only vegan cafe, but there's a couple of new vegan places in town now, and the city is really lucky actually to have some really exceptional places to try vegan food. We've got a fully vegan burger van at the beach, and a restaurant from Roots, and Bar 99, which hosts the Roost restaurant. That's actually now a fully vegan bar as well. And it's been good to see that there's lots of places offering vegan options, vegetarian cafes like popping up around the city, and we feel like generally Aberdeen's becoming more open and more accepting to veganism and plant-based eating. So that's great. So yeah, when you first go vegan or you start to think about doing it, you tend to suck up a lot of information about lots of things to do with it. And because you've already made the decision or you're close to doing so, whatever prompts you to do that, then you go about looking for even more information, because there's like now no barrier within you to learning about the negative consequences of eating animals. And you tend to feel that this need to like strengthen your position as well in preparation for all the questions and maybe arguments that you might find yourself having with your pals or your parents. So before and after I went vegan, I'd taken in all this information about how animals were suffering so horrendously. So for example, the fact that 20 million animals were slaughtered for food every single day, and some of the standard accepted farming practices in the UK, like the removal of pigs' genitals without anaesthesia. And I also learned a lot about how animal agriculture is just wrecking the environment in so many ways, through deforestation, loss of biodiversity, greenhouse emissions, runoff pollution, and all those terrible things that are catapulting us towards this like massive crisis. And I also understood, having also already transitioned, that most people, that for most people, veganism is totally achievable, and it's an easy way to make a big impact on these things. And if it's not achievable for somebody in the developed world, then you know that at least some form of change in diet or some reduction in the consumption of animals is possible. And you know that vegan food is edible, and it's not just edible but also delicious, and it can be totally decadent, or it can be totally healthy, or whatever. It can be whatever you want, and it doesn't have to feel like a massive loss. But the perception of it for most folk is different. I think people think that a vegan diet has to be void of like calories and protein, but like that it's some kind of like just a plate of salad and a green juice. And I think there's some association in people's heads that it's devoid of joy as well for some reason. I don't know why, but it's not. So when I understood all this, I felt that a moral imperative exists to try and be a part of a solution for all these massive problems in whatever way I could. And I think that a lot of people start to feel that way when they absorb all this information. And I think what happens then after this realization is it's different for different people. Like some people do direct outreach. They might go out into the street with leaflets. Some people might take part in direct action in the fields, hunt sabbing or doing rescue work. Some people join or form groups like Extinction Rebellion, and some people decide to contribute to the scientific effort to combat climate change, or the political effort as well to change policies like Rebecca's just been talking about. And all of this is incredibly important work. And some people open cafes, and it just so happens that's what I was pulled towards, with no experience and no money, but we did get there eventually, because where there's a will, there's a way. And it feels like, I don't know how it happened, honestly. Just you have a goal, you have an idea, and somehow everything can fall into place if you want to do it enough, And I felt like that was in my capability to do as well. you know, that's something I felt like it was maybe doable for me. So that's what I did. So we started up the cafe as a pop-up in response to what we felt was this like gaping hole in Aberdeen's food scene, and in response to this need to do something positive to change the world, and starting with where we lived. So I was kind of amazed that this gap existed and that no one had yet given it a go no one had like tried it in Aberdeen yet. And it was a little bit scary maybe to think about why nobody had tried it yet as well, like what the reason was for that. But I think in the end, the reason really is just that it wasn't time yet for Aberdeen. It just wasn't that far along the curve of acceptance and like normalization of veganism, and that's fine. It's just a matter of time really. And there's lots of things about Aberdeen, I think particularly, that sort of contribute to stifling creative independence in the city. And I think it's creative independent businesses that are maybe more likely to give it a go to try and do something like a vegan cafe, and just Aberdeen's not really suited towards that kind of thing as much as other cities maybe. But in any case, in 2017, its time had come, and we did open a wee cafe with the support of the vegan community here through a Kickstarter campaign and some private investment. And the support that we received from this did show us that we had a chance of sticking around for a while and being able to make some kind of impact and some kind of difference. So yeah, our main aims back then, which are still our aims today, were to improve the perception of veganism and vegan food, and to assist in helping folk transition by providing support, information and so on to our customers, and also just providing a space for vegans in the area to come in and to feel safe in terms of like getting spiked with dairy in their cuppa, or having to like suspiciously question the pile of coleslaw that someone's put on the side of your sandwich or something, because that's the worst, just so bad. So yeah, so we set up for those reasons, and we've been busy since the day we opened really, which is great. I mean, it's had its up and downs, really has, and it's been really hard work. We do see a lot of seasonal variance in our income because we have the garden seating outside, which people absolutely love in the summer, but slightly less people love it in the winter, and that's understandable. So our capacity sort of halves in the winter. So yeah, but the garden's been fantastic actually in terms of having that unique selling point that actually appeals to so many different people, no matter if they're vegan or not. They like the cafe, they like the way it looks and feels, and we really work hard to give great friendly service. So all sorts of people come into us, and sometimes they don't even realize that it's a vegan, we're a vegan cafe until maybe like they order a coffee and we ask them what kind of milk they want, and the reply is often like just normal milk, or maybe like skimmed milk, to which I always answer, so oat milks are normal milk, and most people are okay with that and happy to give it a go. So yeah, in the early days we had a few, maybe 2 incidents where the customer had suddenly realized that they were in a vegan cafe and it was like way too much for them, and they just leave. But one woman made her whole family like put their takeaway sandwiches back in the fridge and stormed out, which we thought was a bit of a strange reaction because she was quite angry about it. But I mean, it's really not the overall experience that we've had. We find that people are really open to trying new things, and they're easy to persuade as well if they're not sure. And I think that's partly down to the place that we are in society's understanding of the issues of climate change and animal suffering, and that people tend to know that a plant-based diet has a lot of positive like things about it, so they're more willing to try. And I'm glad that we're here maybe to be the first, or one of the first encounters that people might have with alternatives to meat and dairy. So yeah, really proud of that. So I think that's kind of all dictated to quite a large degree the type of food that we serve at the cafe. So our menu's always been quite eclectic because we're trying to kind of catch everybody with something, either something that they recognize already that sounds and looks and tastes almost the same as non-vegan dishes, like macaroni cheese, which people absolutely love, or like we make a smoked carrot, which is kind of similar in taste and texture to smoked salmon, which we do on a bagel with cream cheese, and it's really nice. Another thing that we make is seitan, which is a meat, Rebecca actually mentioned it It's a meat that's made from wheat, and it's just the protein part of wheat flour, which is essentially pure gluten. And you can get it in flour form, and you can mix it with other flours or beans or tofu, condiments and herbs and spices to create a type of meat, and different types of meat as well. So you could make like a chicken, or you could make like a beef or whatever. It just depends what you flavor it with. So it's a bit of an emerging art form, I think, making seitan. I think it's been made for centuries, but I think just now is like quite an intense experimental process going on with like all vegan chefs and home cooks, and then there's quite a few Facebook groups that come together where people come together and share their recipes and stuff like that. There's a bit of disagreement sometimes about like what's the best way to do it, but I think we've got the hang of the way that we do it now, and we make quite a lot of seitan. We do. We make some pretty convincing chicken and deli meats, which we use to make sandwiches and wraps that would fool most people. We'll sometimes get a bit of stick for imitating meat, but not really often. And I think most people understand that it's okay to try and reproduce the taste and texture of meat in a way that reduces harm to the animals and to the environment. And personally, I don't see an issue with it, except that personally I just love vegetables, and I mostly eat whole foods as it's just like healthier in terms of nutrition. It's kinder on the stomach, and generally whole foods are amazing when you know how to cook them. So we do also include lots of whole foods in our menu to provide like something for everybody, and just to show what's possible, and that a meal doesn't always have to be like centered around meat, right? And you can have a great meal without it. So that's what we've been up to. I think what's happened over the last few years is that we've found that veganism is pretty much normal for our business. Like, it doesn't require much extra effort to have everything be vegan, apart from just like sourcing ingredients. Maybe it's a little bit harder that are a bit harder to find, like white chocolate is quite difficult, marshmallows, and these things are more expensive as well. So it does present a financial challenge as well. But I mean, this is just normal for us. So veganism is not something that we have to like keep trying to do. So now we realize that you sort of like look around and you realize like how much more that there is to be done actually, and that veganism is kind of the starting point for us rather than the end goal. And I think that because we're already acutely aware of how food choices are so powerful in creating change in the world, we look at all the food that we buy in now with like varying degrees of disgust at how it arrived with us, and in what packaging, from what part of the world, and all sorts of stuff like that. So you can just see everything that's wrong with our food systems, and we can see ourselves participating in that to different degrees. And to shift out of that completely would be the really radical thing to do, I think. So we do change our menu when we realize that something is particularly damaging. So for instance, we stopped serving avocados quite a while ago for a few reasons. Just they require so much water to grow, and the food waste involved in avocados is just atrocious. It's like we would find ourselves having to throw away like whole trays of avocados that had just gone out of, they turn like that, So it was just heartbreaking having to throw all that food away. So we stopped that, even though we love them so much. And we also stopped serving coconut milk a while ago, as we go through a lot of milk. So it's something that we wanted to make sure that we had sustainable options for. So now we just offer oat milk and pea milk, which are both great, super tasty. They work well with coffee, so we're just sticking with those. And maybe some customers aren't that happy that they can't get a coconut latte, but yeah. So we also started using this app, Too Good To Go, which I'd actually recommend everybody downloads it, if like just out of interest, but it's great. So basically any food waste that we have at the end of the day, we just make it available to customers on the app at a really heavy discounted price, and they just come and pick it up. So it's just like a bag of whatever it is that we've got left, and people can come by the cafe and pick it up after we've finished like serving for the day. So yeah, that's great. It's like reduced our food waste dramatically, which we're so happy about, and it also helps cover the financial cost of that waste to the business. So yeah, So these are just a few examples of the way that we're developing that side of the business. And I think it's a lot to think about, and it can be an inconvenience sometimes, but it becomes a normal way of being. And I think that it's worth making these changes and setting the example that it's possible to make them as a business as well, and as individuals as well, that like we should just get used to making these changes when we're presented with new information, and when we're presented with an alternative as well, to take it and to support it. I think that's really important. So I hope that we're leading by example when we're while we're also kind of moving ourselves away from some of the bad habits that we're still entangled with, like the use of plastics, which we can reduce, and we do reduce, but as a business it's just so hard to avoid it completely. And I think with all these ethical and environmental problems which require behaviour changes and conscious choices, as a society we need to start with reduction where total exclusion isn't practical. And we need to be accepting that that's just where we are right now, and that the more small changes we can make, that they'll lead to the bigger systemic changes. And it's like this mass effort that would be incredibly powerful when it's combined with like the direct action of individuals who are like really driven. So like people like Rebecca, honestly, just spend the time and think about how to make the big impact, the policy changes, and also the scientific literature that's being worked on, and all that kind of stuff. So there's individuals making these Herculean efforts, and then there's every one of us making all these individual choices, and I think it needs a number of us to keep making noise and piling on pressure on corporations through consumer demand and boycotts and all forms of direct action, big and small, global or like really localized, like just like our wee cafe. And I think at the moment that's what's going to move us towards a more sustainable future, and it's going to keep the ball rolling until it sort of snowballs into something that's totally unstoppable. And then everything will start to shift more quickly when you start seeing the policy changes come in as well. And hopefully all of that will happen in time to reverse some of the damage that we've already done. Yeah, that's my hope. So yeah, we're just doing our wee part at the cafe in the way that we can. Yeah, and that's it. And that's my talk. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Beth. That was very inspiring. I know that you changed your business model slightly due to COVID. You do quite a lot of deliveries, and is that like kind of matching local food up with the customers, or how does it work there?
So yeah, we started a grocery delivery service basically throughout the lockdown, and we make ready meals and stuff as well. So yeah, and try and source as much local produce as possible through it, and just try and cut out the supermarket side of things. It also means that people are buying from more ethical suppliers as well, because we use Green City for a lot of our food, and they have really great suppliers that they use. They always like vet every supplier that they have, so it's yeah, it's good for that.
And have you got any advice that you give anybody trying to set up a business like what that you did? And what is the most valuable thing that you did?
I think there's two sides to it. There's like one side of it which is more inspirational, maybe, that it's, you know, have a goal, believe that you can do it, because I think only when you sort of like start actually making small steps towards doing something, really small steps to start with. It's just having a conversation with somebody, telling somebody what you want to do, just like reaching out in little ways to start something. And then the feedback starts coming back that people do want you to do that, and that they'll start opening doors for you as well. And you get support off lots of people, and people come out of the woodwork and stuff like that. It becomes like a very collaborative thing, and if you just keep that goal, things can happen. And a lot of people don't really think that it can. I don't think veganism helps with that actually as well, because it's small changes that you feel more empowered, because small changes that you're making in your life create ripple effects and lead to bigger changes. And it's the same with business. I think you have to sort of like have a lot of self-belief, but the most important thing is you need to look at your figures right from the beginning. Okay, don't let it run away from you. Like, know exactly what you're spending and what and how much on each thing and what percentage it is. Just make sure that you do all your cash flows from the beginning. Don't play catch up. That's my biggest bit of advice.
That sounds very sound in life, never mind business, Claire.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going